الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي فطر خلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته والصلاة والسلام على الإمام القبلتين ونبي الحرمين وأفضل الثقلين وجد الحسن والحسين الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأرض بأبي القاسم محمد. وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين والذين ذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد يكون الله في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فمن حاجك فيه من بعد ما جاءك من العلم فقل تعالوا ندعو أبناءنا وأبناءكم ونساءنا ونساءكم وأنفسنا وأنفسكم ثم نبتهل فنجعل لعنة الله على الكاذبين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. For the shifa of the mu'mineen and the mu'minat, and for the protection of the mourners of Aba Abdullah al-Husayn wherever they are, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The accusation that Islam is stagnant and regressive in the areas of women's rights is an accusation which has not only been one leveled against Islam historically, but you find it's something which is a contemporary discussion. Because when you open the news today and you look at the media, you find that this is something which is often discussed, that what is the status of women within the religion of Islam. That recently we saw within France, when the hijab-style swimsuit was banned, that there was a much controversy over why it was banned and whether this hijab is something which is regressive and it's something which doesn't fit the mold of 21st century society. Further than that, we hear cases of women having their hijab pulled off in subways with this recent increase in Islamophobia. But you find that this discussion isn't something which has only been taken at the external level. Even internally within Muslims, this is something which is discussed. That when you see women on the catwalk modeling in a hijab, people discuss, is this something which is progressive for the image of Islam, or is this something which is against and in disrespect towards this concept of hijab? So you find this subject, which I've decided for tonight's majlis, is something which is relevant to 21st century society. And that subject is the status of women in Islam. But since this is the night that we remember the musibah of the children of Sayyida Zainab, along the way I will look at the virtues of this great lady. For when you look at this lady, you find that her virtues are numerous, that even when you look at the name, many times, when you open a book of history and you're looking at the biographical information of a certain individual, the first chapter is usually about the names and the titles of that individual. That what does the name Zainab mean? You find that in Arabic, Zainab is a contraction that we have in English, right? We take it is, we contract it into its. In Arabic, it's the same way. Zainab means Zainul Li'ab, that she is a source of beautification for our father. That who is the father of Zainab? That what is something which beautifies? What is a zina? You know, when somebody, they have a child that's born in their house, or something good happens within their life, you just see that their face, it's lit up, that you know that something good is going on within the life of that individual. the father of Zainab, Rasulullah would say that the zina, the beautification of the earth, is the human beings upon the earth, and the beautification of the human beings is Ali ibn Abi Talib. And you find that who is this Zainab? This Zainab is the beautification of that father. That this is the name Zainab, that if the name has this much weight, then how much weight must the biography and that personality have? That when you look farther into her titles, you find she has the famous title, Aqilatu Bani Hashim. That there's a difference between Aqil and Aqila. Aqila and Aqila, there is a difference. That, for example, if you take the word Nasir, you find that that person is a helper at all times. In the same way, aqil, they may use their intellect sometimes, they may not use it sometimes, but aqila is that lady whom the circumstances may change, but her intellect, it remains at that powerful level. And that is why even narrators, you look at somebody such as Ibn Abbas. Ibn Abbas was one of the most knowledgeable commentators of the Holy Quran. This Ibn Abbas would come to the door of Zainab when he wanted answers. And you know what he would say when he would narrate from Bibi Zainab salamullahi alayha? He would say, Haddathatna aqilatuna Zainab bint Ali. He says, I narrated from our intellectual Zainab bint Ali. And indeed you find that within this subject of the status of women, she is that ideal role model for the women of the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And this discussion, it will take place in a number of stages. Number one, when Islam describes women's rights, why does it choose equality and not uniformity? Number two, who were the women that supported the message of Rasulullah and why were they vital? Number three, what do the narrations mention that who will be the women that support the 12th Imam? Number four, what was the life of Sayyidah Zainab like before Karbala? And number five, was it really necessary for her to be in the land of Karbala? In order that we can analyze this contemporary subject and we can have a glimpse into the life of this great individual. You find that the first accusation made against the religion of Islam is that oftentimes people, they look into the laws of Islam. When they look in the laws of Islam, they find that in certain business transactions, not in all cases, but in certain business transactions, the witness of a woman is half of a man. At that point, they level an accusation. Is Islam saying that a woman is half of a man? But in reality, all of these claims, they can be summarized into this one paragraph. They say that if Islam believed that women and men were equal, then everything would be the same. And thus, not everything is the same. They believe that women and men are not equal. You find that this logic, this is very weak logic. Because as I mentioned another night, if A is B and B is C, A does not always equal C because there are many correlative factors. And the key to answering this question is what? Is that Islam, it appeals to the psychology and the physiological circumstances as well. If women and men were the same psychologically and physiologically, then you find the laws would be uniform. But since they are not, you find that there is equality, but it is due to the differences in various laws. What do I mean? That if you find that if everything was unanimous for a man and a woman, this would just serve the male purpose within this world, that this would be an exploitation of women. What do I mean? That when you look, you find within Islamic law, when a girl who is not a divorcee is trying to get married, she needs to get the permission of her father. Now some people will say that, why does she need the permission of her father in this circumstance? It's because she is not experienced with men, and women, they're a creature of their love, of their nurturing, that the love of a mother is something which is incomparable. You know, when Ismail, he was thirsty, Then they were in the desert, him and his mother Hajra. That what did her mother do when there was no water? She ran in between the mountains, Safa and Marwa, back, forth, back, forth. She did this 7 times. Do you think a male would have that kind of love to run in between the mountains 7 times? That he would say that, listen, the first time nothing came up, the second time nothing came up, but that is the love of the mother. That the mother is the one who brings changes. They asked a man, he was trying to have a revolution. They said to him, where is your army? He replied by saying, right now my army is playing in the laps of their mothers. In 20 years, come and ask me. That this is that value, that Islam, it showed the value, that there is no limit to how high a woman can go, that she can reach the heavens. But forget reaching the heavens, Islam was ready to put heaven underneath her feet. That forget reaching the heavens, Islam was ready to put heaven underneath her feet. And that's why when you look at Arabian society in the pre-Islamic era, that it's important to analyze the pre-Islamic era, but we can't have our discussions just limited to that time. We start with there and then we progress forward. When you look at pre-Islamic era, what do you find? You find that that girl who would be born, for no sin, she would be buried within the ground. You find what? You find that the stepmother of a person would be inherited by the eldest son. That this was that level of ignorance. And you find even when you look within the West, it was only in 1882 in British law that a woman was allowed to take control of her own property. That in 1882, before 1882, every time a woman got property wealth, that she couldn't have her own bank account. She had to go and give it towards her husband. You find Islam was progressive in this area. That Islam, it gave rights to women before this new movement which started in the 1920s. Islam, it was already giving rights. And when you look within the Quran, this is highlighted. Why? Because when you look within the biblical scripture, and you analyze the story of Adam, Eve, Adam, Hawwa going towards the tree, what does the Bible say? The Bible says that Eve tempted Adam, and it's because of Eve that Adam ate from the tree. But in reality, when you look within the Quran says that that man and women, they went together and they made that mistake, which of course it was not a sin, of course, since he is a prophet, he was in heaven, but they made that mistake together. That this is the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, that when you come to the door of Ahlul Bayt and you learn from their knowledge, that you'll begin to have answers to contemporary issues which are within our society. But the goal is to bring the theoretical into the practical within our societies. You know, Imam al-Baqir, he would point towards his house, and you know what he would say? He would say, there is no knowledge except that it comes from this house. That when you have them, you don't need anyone else. That, you know, there was an expression amongst the Arabs that Hatam at-Ta'i, he had become a figure who was famous for his generosity. That sometimes it became kind of a Paul Bunyan type of tale. But the Arabs, they had an expression, it was metaphorical, that when somebody was generous, they would say, Akramu min Hatam, that he's more generous than Hatam. Of course, they meant it expression-wise. They didn't mean it literally. But now somebody came up to Ali ibn Abi Talib. He says, oh Ali, who is generous? Who is more generous? You or Hatam? They're asking this to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen replies by saying that Hatam, he had a complex which had 40 doors. When somebody would knock on the first door, he would give him wealth. Then he would say, go to the second door. And you know what Hatam would do? He would cover his face. He would make his voice sound different so the person didn't become embarrassed. Hatam would give at the second door. Then he would say, go to the third, all the way down to 40 doors. Ali ibn Abi Talib says, this is the generosity of Hatam. But if they came to my door, I would have given them so much that they would not have to go towards anybody else's door. And this is Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. When you come to their door, they give you enough. You don't have to go to anybody else's door. So you find in this aspect, when you analyze the knowledge of Ahlul Bayt, that they were very progressive in the terms of their women's having rights, that many of their wives, they had a position in the front of society. And even when you look within Rasulullah's life, you find that a number of women were key in this message of Islam spreading. That when you look at first, who else other than his wife Khadija, that anytime a woman in Islam is mentioned, the discussion, it starts with Bibi Khadija, for she laid the foundations of La ilaha illallah. You know, when you look in Islamic history, there is a pair of mother-daughter. There are two pairs of mother-daughters which are incomparable. One is Bibi Khadija and her daughter Sayyida Fatimatu Zahra salamullahi alayha. And the other is Bibi Fatima and her daughter Sayyida Zainab salamullahi alayha. But when you look at this pair, you see Fatima is in between these pairs. I say Fatima is the daughter of that mother who established the foundations of La ilaha illallah, and she is the mother of that daughter who saved La ilaha illallah. That she is the daughter of that mother who established the foundations of La ilaha illallah, and she is the mother of that daughter who saved La ilaha illallah. And that's why even when you look within the Quran, that what does the Quran say about the mother of Bibi Fatima? It says about Rasulullah, Alam yajidka yatiman fa'awa, wa wajadaka dhalan fahada, wa wajadaka a'ilan fa'agna. That he says, "O Rasul, that did we not find you alone and we provided for you, that we gave you nurturing, and were you not lost?" And I'm not literally translating it because there's an incorrect way to translate it. The incorrect translation is that Rasulullah was astray and then he was guided. But the correct way to analyze this is to say that the people were astray from Rasulullah and they were guided to Rasulullah. And at the third level, what do you find? It says that were you not in need and we made you self-sufficient. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He didn't make money fall from the sky for Rasulullah. He didn't make any rain of dollars coming down. But you find that intermediary which Rasulullah took to take care of the Prophet when he was alone was Abu Talib alayhi salam. And that intermediary through which he made himself sufficient was Bibi Khadija salamullahi alayha. And look at the beauty of this, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ascribed His own action to these individuals. And that is their level, that is their status. And this is why Rasulullah would say about Khadija, that she believed in me when nobody else believed in me. She gave me shelter when people turned away from me. And she gave me children which no one else gave towards me. So you find this is that first, Bibi Khadija. The second lady you find who was essential in the spread of Islam came at the Battle of Uhud. When you look at the Battle of Uhud, it was retaliation for the Battle of Badr. Within the Battle of Badr, Abu Sufyan, they took an army of 900 against the 313 of the Muslims. You find in the way the first battle in Islam was of 313, the last battle will have 313 commanders of that army. But you find the Muslims, they defeated them. At that point, when they return home, Abu Sufyan, he's speaking to his wife Hind. She says that, "What are you doing? You are here while my brothers and fathers is dead." That who died? That her brothers Walid, Shayba, and her father Utbah, they had died within this battle. You know, they were all killed by the sword of Amir al-Mu'mineen. That's why Rasulullah has a hadith that says that even if Ali killed your father or your brother, still have love for Ali ibn Abi Talib. Because Ali is with the truth and the truth is with Ali. When he strikes someone, it is only for the cause of Allah, and those relatives of yours were against the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why you find in the Battle of Uhud, the Muslims, they had the upper hand the entire battle. But a moment came that when they realized that they had solidified the battle, they began to go pick up the spoils of the wars. Rasulullah told them, "Do not leave this mountain which was at the Battle of Uhud." But they left the mountain. It is at that point, there was a companion by the name of Mus'ab ibn Umair who was struck. Mus'ab ibn Umair, he resembled Rasulullah. Everyone began to say, "Mata Muhammad, Mata Muhammad. Muhammad has died." You know, when they asked Ali ibn Abi Talib later, that why didn't you run away when everybody else ran away when the call was made that the Prophet has died? You know what Amir al-Mu'mineen replied? He said that other peoples were saying that there is no point of living or fighting anymore. There is no point of fighting or dying for this cause anymore because Muhammad is dead. I said there is no point of living within this world anymore without my brother Rasulullah. That this is the ishq, the love of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And you find within this battle, when they all ran away, there were 3 individuals that stayed with Rasulullah. Number 1 was Amir al-Mu'mineen. Number 2 was a companion by the name of Abu Darjana al-Ansari. And the third was a lady by the name of Haritha. That this Islam, when other people, they ran away, this Islam, it was supported by a woman in this incident. That when you have these discussions, mention these historical facts. And you know, this Haritha, she was struck so hard upon this battle that this wound, it would open up for an entire year. That this is that position, that Islam, it allowed women to be active and remain modesty without making compromises. You find at the 3rd level, this was the 2nd lady. But when you move to the 3rd level, you find that there was one lady in Islam who was indispensable, and that was Sayyida Fatima, salamullahi alayha. That was Sayyida Fatima. You know, when they would go towards the battle, people would come to the door of Fatima to get answers for their issues which were going on at that time. That they would come towards her and she would give them answers over there. And this is why, you know, when the Quran says the famous verse which everyone knows, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. Then you know what qurba means? There's something in Arabic which is the comparative. For example, if I say better, if I say lesser, but then there's something which is the superlative, best, least. You find that in Arabic, it is the same way. If I say qareeb, that you are close to me, this is comparative. But the superlative is what? It is aqrab. You've heard akbar. Akbar is the greatest. What is the feminine of akbar? Kubra. Same way you have asghar. Feminine of asghar? Sughra. A'la, the most high, the feminine ulya. You have the most low, adna, the feminine dunya. That the most low, the feminine is dunya. That's why Ali ibn Abi Talib would say, I've divorced this world 3 times and there's no returning back to this world. You know, a famous scholar once used to say that the mu'mineen, they shouldn't marry the divorcee of their master, Ali ibn Abi Talib. Because if she was worth it, then Amir al-Mu'mineen would have taken her. So this is the lowest of the forms, dunya. But in the same way, you find what? You have aqrab, which is the male form, and the female is qurba. قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. And you find that this is singular, it is not plural, highlighting that there was only one daughter which Rasulullah had. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And you find it is through this one daughter that 12 imams they came. That if Amir al-Mu'mineen was one speaking Quran, then Fatima came 11 speaking Qurans. And as she was necessary within the spread of the religion of Islam. That's why even when you look on the day of Mubahila, that when the Christians of Najran, they came to have a that when they came over here, the verse says, فَمَنْ حَاجَكَ فِيهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَكَ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ فَقُلْ تَعَالَوْا نَدْعُوا أَبْنَاءَنَا وَأَبْنَاءَكُمْ وَنِسَاءَنَا. That women's rights, وَنِسَاءَنَا وَنِسَاءَكُمْ وَأَنفُسَنَا وَأَنفُسَكُمْ. That when it said, the Christians, they came for this mubahila, they said what? They said, you bring your men, we will bring our men. You bring your women, we'll bring our women. You bring yourselves, we'll bring ourselves. It is on this incident that they had decided that if he brought anybody else other than his family, we would engage in this mubahila. But when they saw, what did they see? They saw Rasulullah is coming out. In his arms is Imam Hassan. In one hand is in his arms is Imam Hussein, not Imam Hassan. In his hands is Imam Hassan holding his hands. Behind him is Sayyida Fatima, and behind her is Amir al-Mu'mineen. That this was the hijab of Fatima and social activism. Why? Because you find when you look at the narrations of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, they came up in that time period which was after Fajr, but before the sun came up. They asked Ahlul Bayt that why did Ahlul Bayt pick this time period? They replied by saying, we picked this time period because there was light, but there was not enough light to make out the figure of Fatimatul Zahra. And she would be covered with Rasulullah in front and Amir al-Mu'mineen behind her. You find that it's on this occasion that Sayyidah Fatima, she came out in this necessary incident within the religion of Islam, yet she maintained her modesty. This highlights that modesty can be maintained when a lady goes out and is trying to create social change within the world. And when you're trying to create social change, it is possible to go out and remain modest at the same time. So you find that this was in the life of Rasulullah. And in the same way, you find that the image, the reflection of Rasulullah, the 12th Imam, the narrations mention, there will be a number of ladies who will be at the forefront of his army. That the narration of our 6th Imam, Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, salamullahi alayhi, he mentions that there will be 13 women who will be brought back, and the concept is of Raja. Raja means that some of the best from history, they will be brought back in this final battle between good and evil, haq and batil. And you find within that battle, there are a number of ladies who the Imam took by name. And he took them by name so you could analyze their biographies and learn from those biographies. Who were these ladies? Number one, he mentioned Qanwa, the daughter of Rushayd al-Hajari. He mentions who? He mentions Siyana, the wife of Mu'min Ali Fir'aun. She mentions who? Sumayya, the mother of Ammar bin Yasir. He mentions who? He mentions Zubaydah, the wife of Harun al-Rashid. And in order to analyze this, I'll only examine these 4 individuals who I just mentioned and analyze 4 out of these 5. That when you look and you're analyzing their biographies, it's to gain benefit from those biographies. And you'll find that there is something which is common within all of them. For example, when you look at Qanwa, the daughter of Rushayd al-Hajari, her father was an individual who was killed by Ibn Ziyad. That Ibn Ziyad, the killer of Imam Hussein, he had killed her father as well. And you know how he killed her? One day, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he's speaking to Rushad. He says, "Oh Rushad, do you know that you will be killed, that your arms will be cut, your hands will be cut, and your tongue will be cut?" That the tongue of Maytham al-Tammar wasn't the only tongue which was cut in the message of Ali ibn Abi Talib. There were other tongues that were cut also. And then Amir al-Mu'mineen says to Rushad, "Oh Rushad, are you ready for that day?" Rushad replies by saying, "Oh my master, will I attain heaven for this?" Amir al-Mu'mineen says, "Oh Rushad, you will be with me in heaven for this." And you find that that day came. Rushad, he was announcing the virtues of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And the Ibn Ziyad, he begins to cut the hands, the arms of Rushad, and the tongue of Rushad was cut. And you find it is this daughter of Rushayd al-Hajari who stood steadfast on the love of Ali ibn Abi Talib in this circumstance. That I know that when you look at the climate of the world today, it's not easy. It's not easy with the way society is going towards, but there are examples in history of women who went through much more. That when you look at Siyana, that who was Siyana? She was the wife of Mu'min Ali Fir'aun. In the Bible, he's described as Ezekiel, Hizqil in Arabic. That Ezekiel, it was her wife. His wife was who? His wife was the hairdresser, the one who would comb the hair of the daughter of Fir'aun. You find one day she's combing the hair of the daughter of Pharaoh. The comb falls on the ground. She says, "Bismillah," by accident. The daughter says, "What did you say? Did you just say something?" She says, "No, I didn't say anything." Then she says, "No, you said something." She said, "I said Bismillah." She asked her, "Do you not believe my father Pharaoh is the Lord?" She says, "No." She immediately goes towards her father. She says, "That hairdresser of ours, she's a believer in the Lord of Musa." You know what Pharaoh does? He creates that fire. That lady, she isn't scared when she comes in front of the fire. But when Pharaoh asks for her child, a thought comes into her head that, am I really going to do this? It is at that moment her child speaks to her and says, oh mother, be steadfast in this situation. And Pharaoh, he throws Siana and her child into that fire. That life isn't easy, it's tough. But you have examples within history who went through circumstances. Tonight we remember Ummul Masa'ib, the one who went through more musibah than anyone else. You look farther than that, you have other examples. You have Zubaydah, the wife of Harun al-Rashid. You know, Zubaydah, in that time period, water had become very expensive. And when you look at the future of the world, that's the section the future of the world is going in. Water is the next big crisis. That when you look in that time period, water was very expensive. At that time period, she would get water to those at Hajj for free. That she created a tunnel, a 10-mile tunnel to Makkah, so there would be extra water going over there. You find this Zubaydah is famous. Why? That one day Zubaydah, she's walking by. She sees Bahlul. Bahlul is in his garden. He had created a garden. Bahlul, he speaks to Zubaydah. He says that, do you want to buy my garden? Zubaydah says, yes, I'll buy your garden, to help Bahlul. She gives him 100 dirhams. And then she asks, oh Bahlul, are you going to give me the receipt? He says, I'll give you the receipt later. You know what she does? She goes back. She goes to sleep that night. She has a dream that she is in heaven. Somebody comes up to her. He gives her a receipt which has writing of gold upon it. She says that that garden which you bought from Bahlul is this garden within heaven. She wakes up. She tells her husband Harun al-Rashid that dream. Harun al-Rashid, he goes to Bahlul. He says, oh Bahlul, sell me the same garden that you sold my wife Zubaydah. Bahlul replies by saying that she bought it without knowing what it contains. Why would I sell it to you now that you know what it contains? Sometimes when you don't know why something is happening within your life, there is a reality which is so profound that you cannot realize it, which is benefiting you. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. You find you have Zubaydah, you have Siana, you have Qanwa, but none comes close to Sayyida Zainab salamullahi alayha as an example for those within the community. That when you look at this lady Zainab, who was this lady Zainab? That even within our childhood, when you look at the biography of Sayyida Zainab, you find that she has the unique honor that she met 7 out of the 14 ma'sumeen. That nobody else has this honor of meeting what? That she meets 7 out of the 14. Only her and her 2 brothers, they had this. That when you look at her, what do you see? You find that there is a young Zainab in the arms of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he's speaking to Zainab. He says, oh Zainab, say 1. She says 1. He says, oh Zainab, say 2. She says 1 again. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Zainab, say 2. She says 1 again. She replies to her father by saying, at the age of 5, she says, oh my father, that tongue which is used to saying 1, how can that tongue say 2? She says, oh father, that tongue which is used to saying 1, how can that tongue say 2? And this is why when Imam Zainul Abidin, he describes his aunt, what does he say? He says, إِنَّهَا أَعْلِمَةُ الْغَيْرُ مُعَلَّمَةٌ, that she is that learned lady whom nobody taught to her anything. That this is that ilm of Sayyida Zainab. And this is why you find that she was necessary because of her knowledge, because she would propagate the message of her brother. That what did her brother do? Her brother was the one who was Sharik al-Quran. He was the one who was with the Quran. Why? He protected the interpretation of the Quran. He protected the interpretation of Islam. But in the same way, Hussein needed somebody to protect his interpretation of his message. And that's why Zainab is Sharikatul Hussein. And you know, they give that famous example that you have a train track. That train track is cut in front. There's 2 individuals. The man, he says that I'm going to go and I'm going to stand in front of that train. That train is going to hit me. But when it hits me, it's not going to fall over the cliff. But your job is to spread the message and tell everyone that I wasn't committing suicide. Rather, I was saving everybody else. That is who Zainab did. The one who cut the tracks was Yazid. The one who stood in front of the trains was Hussein, and the one who told the world that he sacrificed himself to save everyone is Sayyida Zainab. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The one who sacrificed herself to save everyone, the one who sacrificed himself to save everyone else is Imam Hussein. But that messenger is Sayyida Zainab. And that's why you find that musibah after musibah she faced. That even from her birth, there was this special connection she had with her brother. What does the narration say? The narration says that often Sayyida Zainab, she would cry when she was a child. But Bibi Fatima, she would take her by Imam al-Hussein, she would stop crying. Then she would move her away, she would start crying again. They say, Ya Rasulallah, she says, oh my father, whenever this child is with me, when she's away from Hussein, she is crying. But when I take her towards Hussein, she stops crying. Rasulullah says, oh Fatima, this is that daughter of yours who will be with Hussein in Karbala. Oh Fatima, this is that daughter of yours that will be with Hussein in Karbala. You know, I've been reciting Musibah for a number of years, but there's two things I've noticed. That whenever I address Imam al-Hussein as the son of Fatima, it's as if the air, it just leaves the room. And the other thing I notice is when I call Zainab the daughter of Ali ibn Abi Talib, that tears, they begin to fall. That this is that Zainab, when she got married, there were two conditions placed upon her wedding. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, oh Abdullah, you can marry Zainab, but oh Abdullah, make sure Zainab does the ziyarah of her brother 2 times every day. But oh Abdullah, the second condition is this, that when my son Hussein goes towards Karbala, oh Abdullah, give ijazah for Zainab to go. You find it was the day of Ashura. Zainab, she's speaking to On and Muhammad. She says, oh On and Muhammad, I know you are the grandsons of Haidar Karrar. I know you are the grandchildren of Jafar al-Tayyar. I know you will reach the Furat. But when you reach the Furat, don't drink from that Furat until Sakina and Ali Asghar, until they've drank from the Furat. You find that On and Muhammad, they are fighting. And you know what they would say? Whenever they would kill someone, they would turn around. They would say, oh my Uncle Abbas, are you proud of us? Oh our Uncle Hussein, are you proud of us? But you find these children, as they're fighting, a time had come. They fall upon the plains of Karbala. They call upon their uncles. From one side, Hazrat Abbas comes. From the other side, Imam Hussein comes. You know what they say? They say, we have one final message for our mother. Tell our mother, when we were fighting, we made it to the Furat, but we didn't drink from the Furat because Asghar and Sakina. Because Asghar and Sakina hadn't drank from that Furat. You find the bodies were taken back to the tents. Janab Fizza, she comes in. She says, oh Zainab, your children are here. When Zainab, she comes out of the tent, she sees the body of On. She sees the body of Muhammad. She puts one hand on the body of On. She puts one hand on the body of Muhammad. She puts her head in sajda. Rabbana taqabbal minna innaka anta as-sami'ul alim. But you find this Zainab, after Karbala, she didn't cry. This caravan, it went to Kufa, she didn't cry. It went to Sham, to Karbala, she didn't cry. But when she comes back to Medina, she walks into her home. She sees Abdullah. Abdullah says, oh Zaifa, oh lady who has become weak, who are you? She says, oh Abdullah, do you not even recognize Zainab anymore? Do you not even recognize Zainab anymore? It's when she goes up to that room where her children would pray in. She begins to cry. She says, my children, Ad and Muhammad, forgive me. I had promised my mother Fatima I would only cry for my brothers. على لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. Raise your hands as we make this dua. Ya Allah, we ask through the right of Zainab. Ya Allah, we ask through the right of Zainab for the rebuilding of Jannatul Baqi. Ya Allah, we ask through the right of Zainab for the hastening of the master of our time. Ya Allah, we ask through the right of Zainab to give our sisters the strength to follow upon the message of Zainab as well as us over here. Because when you look within this society, it's not easy. But you know what? Zainab, she gave an example that when it came to hijab, there was something, I can't tell you and sit on this pulpit that I know how it feels to wear hijab within this society. But there was something so powerful in this hijab that when they took that hijab, it broke Zainab. And this is why the Quran says, it says what? It says, وَذَلِكَ وَمَن يُعَدِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ. It says what? It says respect the signs of Allah. The moment you put on that hijab, you become one of the signs of Allah. Because when people see you, they are reminded of Allah. And this is the power of Zainab. Ya Allah, allow us to walk upon the path of Sayyida Zainab salamullahi alayh. And Ya Allah, protection of the followers of Imam al-Hussein wherever they are. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ.
मोमिन से दरख्वास्त है कि प्लीज़ खामोशी से बाहर जाएं, यहीं बैठें, मजलिस सलाम शुरू होने जा रहा है.
सलवात पढ़ें. आलम में यूं शरीक रिसालत है फातिमा, रहमत नबी है सायाए रहमत है फातिमा. आलम में यूं शरीक मरियम का फातिमा से भला क्या मुकाबिला. मरियम का फातिमा से بھلا کیا مقابلہ مریم تو عابدہ ہے عبادت ہے فاطمہ عالم یوں شریک دونوں کے اشتراک سے سجدہ ہے دونوں کے اشتراک سے سجدہ قبول ہے حیدر اگر نماز ہے نیت ہے فاطمہ حیدر اگر نماز ہے نیت ہے فاطمہ عالم میں یوں شریک صلوات حسین کی دکھ بھری کہانی تمام دنیا سنا کرے گی حسین کی دکھ بھری کہانی تمام دنیا سنا کرے گی جو رو پڑے گا اسے جہاں میں علی کی بیٹی دعا کرے گی جو رو پڑے گا اسے جہاں میں علی کی بیٹی دعا کرے گی حسین کی دکھ بھری کہانی حسین کی لاش بے کفن سے یہ کہہ کہ زینب جدا ہوئی ہے جو تیرے مقتل میں بچ گیا ہے وہ کام میری ردا کرے گی حسین کی دکھ بھری کہانی عجیب ماں ہے کہ 6 مہینے کلال قربان، 6 اصغر کی یاد آئی، رباب زندہ میں کیا کرے گی، حسین کی دکھ بھری کہانی، حسین باقر سے کہہ رہے تھے میری سکینہ کو ساتھ رکھنا، سفر کے ہر موڑ پہ یہ بچی تمہیں دلا سے دیا کرے گی، حسین کی دکھ بھری کہانی، نبی کے روضے پہ ایک ضعیفہ جناب زینب سے کہہ رہی تھی کہ بعد عباس ہر قدم پر میری رقیہ وفا کرے گی، حسین کی دکھ بھری کہانی۔ صلوات
بار دیگر نعرے صلوات۔ اے شافعِ روز جزا بلغ العلا بکمالہ، اے شافعِ روز جزا بلغ العلا بکمالہ، اے مادنِ جود و سخا کشف الدجا بجمالہ، اے معدن جود و سخا کشف الدجا بجمالہ، احمد سے تو احمد ہوا حسنت جمیع خصالہ یعنی محمد مصطفیٰ صلو علیہ وآلہ اے شافع صلوات یوں بھی ہے اور یوں بھی ولی